Welcome back to MVM. Today we have a review. This one is for Isle of Cats from City of Games. This is a game I played back at Origins, I think, for the first time this last year. It's a 1 to 4 player tile placement and drafting game that has cats of all things, which I never thought I'd like, but I do.
Yeah, so it can be played solo or 1 to 4 different players. It takes about an hour to play through. It's a very, very simple game to learn. It can actually be played in 2 modes. You have a family mode, which is very simple by placing the polyominoes on the table, and then there's a portion of the game that's for more experienced gamers where you're drafting cards. But it's probably, it's early in 2020 right now, but it's probably my favorite game so far of 2020.
It is pretty early.
Yeah.
But it is a favorite so far for us this year.
All right, so there is already a how to play video that is in the instructions for the game. Plus, we already have a live stream that we did last week on the game. So we invite you guys to go check out both of those to learn how to play the game. However, we'll give you an overview of what you're trying to accomplish. So the idea is that there is this island of cats, and there's this dark force that's trying to take over the island, and it is your job to go to the island and rescue these cats onto your boat.
Yes, the dark force is Vesh Darkhand. That's a name for you. He is coming to the island because that's where he's going to start his world domination. He wants to take care of all the cats. Actually, not take care of them. He wants to get rid of them. We want to take care of them, so we're going to get them on our boats and get them off the island as much as possible.
So the game takes place over 5 rounds. Each of the rounds has 5 phases that you'll take part in, and at the end of that 5th round, there is a scoring round for a bunch of the different things that you've done on your boat. Each of the players is going to have a boat in front of them. These boats are primarily the same shape. However, the placement of the rats and the placement of the maps on the boat is going to change depending upon the player mat that you're playing with. Also, there is a number of different polyominoes in this game. There's 5 different cat families, and they all have different shapes and sizes, which you're trying to place on your boat itself.
Yeah, the game's going to start with some of those cats on either side of the island. You're going to pull out 2 per player and put them on one side and the other. And then, of course, down across the bottom, you have the Oshax cats, which are kind of unique and interesting cats because they're wild when you place them and you can claim the color, as well as some treasures. You've got common treasures right here. We've got 1 rare treasure right here. There will be more Oshax and treasures in the bag as we draw them throughout the game.
There's 3 other things we'll talk about briefly. Number 1, in the center of the board, this is going to track the rounds for the game and also the turn order. And it's going to have the number of fish that it costs to buy these polyominoes from each of the sides. The currency in the game is fish itself. Fish are what's going to be used in order to draft the cards and place them in front of you. They're also what's used to buy those particular cats. Each player is also going to have a basket in front of them, and that's used to catch the cats.
Yeah, everyone has a permanent basket to start with. This thing is going to be exhausted from time to time in order to rescue some of the cats. You can get more of these, but more baskets are going to come from the actual cards that you draft.
And the big thing here are the cards themselves. If you play the experience game, which I imagine most people watching this video are going to do, there's about 150 cards in this deck. This is going to power your engine and your ability to draft particular cards, get particular color combinations on your board, do specific actions like gaining those common treasures and rare treasures, and doing all the fun things that you like doing in Isle of Cats. So the game is actually broken down into 5 phases, and this is the easiest portion to explain because it's really simple. At the start of each round, each player is going to gain 20 fish, and that's just a free number of fish that each player collects. Again, that's going to use to power all of your actions in the game.
Yeah, fish is an absolute vital currency in this game. You're going to be using it to buy some of the cards as you draft them, but you're also, like Jeremy said, going to be using the fish to rescue the cats at a later phase in the game.
Then comes phase 2. This is the explore phase. This is one of the meatier portions of the game. This is when each player is going to be randomly dealt 7 of these cards face down in front of them. This is where the draft takes place. And on your turn, and actually it's all done simultaneously, you're going to pick 2 of these cards, place them face down in front of you, and pass the remaining cards to the player on your left. You're going to keep doing that, collecting the rest of the cards from the player on your right, picking 2 more, and passing them until you have a brand new set of 7 cards. But what you need to pay attention to are all the actions on the cards and the costs of those cards themselves.
Yeah, in the upper left-hand corner of each card is a cost in fish. So once you have your 7, you're going to look at all of those, determine what cards you want to keep, and then pay in fish for the cards that you keep. The rest of your cards are going to get discarded. Like Jeremy said, there's a variety of cards, and like we said, there's videos that tell you all about them. But to give you a general sense, there are cards that you're going to be able to use to rescue cats. There are going to be cards to let you grab some of the treasure. A number of different things, all in the interest of getting these tiles onto your ship.
Yes, and the third phase actually pertains to specific types of cards, and these are lesson cards, and they come in two different forms. You have personal lessons that you're going to play face down in front of you that you'll only reveal at the end of the game. These are goals that you're trying to accomplish by the end of that 5th round. And you also have public lessons. These are ones that you place face up to the center of the board. You don't own these, and everyone's going for these goals at the same time. These can be things like having a certain number of treasures on your board and so forth. Some of them, if you play them as a public lesson, will even allow you to designate a very specific color of cat and get points for those, but everyone else will as well.
Yeah, and once all of the lessons have been played, whether they're private or public, you're going to move on to the next phase, which is rescuing the cats. The first part is looking at your hand in player order and choosing your rescue cards that you want to play. These are the green cards in your hand. They're going to have baskets or half baskets and boots on them. In player turn order, everyone's going to play the cards that they want to play during this phase face down, and then once everyone does, they reveal them and look at the boots. Whoever has the most boots is going to go first during the Rescue Cats phase, and then the baskets that you play, half and full baskets, will add up to equal all of the baskets you have for that round to capture your cats.
And when you capture cats, you're capturing one cat at a time using one of the baskets you have, either in the form of your permanent basket, which you flip over, or your cards that make up baskets. Catching cats is simple. You look on the left side or the right side of the island and decide which one of these polyominoes you wish to capture. The ones on the left side cost 3 fish, while the ones on the right cost 5 fish. And when you collect them, you simply decide where on your boat you wish to place them. Each polyomino after that has to be adjacent to one that's previously placed. And there's a whole strategy on why you want to place them in very specific areas. The boat is made up of 7 rooms, and these are broken up by icons on them. If you fill up these rooms at the end of the game, you don't deduct points. So you want to fill up rooms, but you also want to cover rats. Rats are going to negate points at the end of the game. But you also want to cover up other areas as well by connecting cats together of the same color, because you get points for like a bunch of red cats or a bunch of blue cats and so forth. So this is the other part of the game that's really meaty.
Yeah, like Jeremy said, this is even more decision making. If you thought drafting the cards was decision making, placing these cats significantly tests your might when it comes to making these decisions, because you might want to go for a map, because when you cover up a mat, you're able to take immediately one of the common treasures. Now, keep in mind, you have to cover that map with the cat of the same color.
Right.
Then there's the families. You want to have at least 3 cats of the same color touching one another. That creates a family. The larger the family, meaning the number of cats continuously touching each other, the more points that's going to be at the end of the game.
And the final phase is the 5th phase. This is where in turn order, once again, you're going to do your rare finds. There's 2 types of rare finds. There are yellow cards, and then there are the Oshak cards, which are kind of a reddish brown color. The rare cards are the treasure cards, allow you to collect common treasures or possibly rare treasures by expending those cards. Remember, you've already purchased these cards, so you can use them at any time. The Oshaks are a special type of card, and they look like this. They allow you to collect any one of the available Oshaks, place it on your board using the same rules as always, and then placing one of the colored cats on top of it, making it that particular type of cat. These are very, very large tiles, and they're very hard to find. There's only 6 of them in that whole stack of 150 cards.
Yeah, and those can really help you build those families, like we said, because if you have a few blue on the board already, you can get a couple Oshak's cats out there and add more blue cats to the table.
Now, there's 2 things I need to mention as well. Any cards that you don't use for that round can be placed face down in front of you. You can keep those for the next round. You don't have to repay for them. You can use them at any time. And speaking of any time, there are also these type of cards. These are purple cards, and these can be used at any time as well. So these are very powerful cards that you can use to kind of change up some rules within the game. You're going to do that 5 times over 5 rounds, and you're going to get in-game scoring. And there are 6 different things that you're going to score for. And I'll go through the first half. I'll let you go through the second half. You're going to lose 1 point for every rat. You're going to lose 5 points for every full room that's not completely covered. And you're going to get points for those families that David said. 8 points for a family of 3, but if you have a giant family of 10, you get 40 points. So you want to have a lot of red cats or a lot of green cats connected together.
Yeah, and then you're going to look at the rare treasures you've added to your boat. Now, these are the treasures here above the board. They are kind of a golden color. The more of those you add, the more points you'll get. They're each worth 3 points. And then finally, you're going to look at all your lessons, both your private lessons and your public lessons. The private lessons, like Jeremy said, are going to be revealed at this point, and those are only going to score points for you, while the public lessons are going to score points for everyone at the table.
And that's Isle of Cats. It's very simple to play. If you want to play the family variant, you can as well. That's simply just taking polyominoes from those areas, paying for them, and placing them on your boat. You don't use the cards at all.
No cards.
Highly suggest you guys using the cards.
Yeah.
Let's give our review. As I already mentioned, I really love this game, but I'm going to start with my negatives so I can lead out with my positives. The one thing I don't like about this game is the art. I know it's endearing to some people, but I find the art to be very weird. It just doesn't appeal to me. The boat's fine, the cat art's really strange, and that's a super nitpicky thing about this game. The other thing that I like but don't like is the fact that this pack here allows you to change up the lessons. There are private lessons that have A, B, C, that will come with the base game, and the D, E, F, which are in this, and that really gives you more variability on very specific things you're trying to get with your boat. This is great for the people that back the Kickstarter, but if you didn't back the Kickstarter, you have to go out and find this thing, because I highly recommend it. If you get into the game and you like it as much as I do, I think you'll want this as well.
Yeah, I do think I would agree that offers some long-term variability. I think right out of the box, though, you can get quite a few plays with it. In fact, I think I've played this maybe 4 or 5 times, and I've taught so many new people, I've used just A, B, and C every time. So that really just comes into the scoring. The satisfaction that you get, and this is probably one of my big pros, this game has satisfaction from beginning to end. The draft, if you like drafting games at all, games like Bunny Kingdom, I mean, honestly, any drafting game, but Bunny Kingdom comes to mind because of the way you're drafting 2 cards, keeping them, and then some of the cards are end game scoring, and some basically power the engine of what you're trying to do. The cool thing about this is what you're trying to do. Compared to Bunny Kingdom, which I also like, this tile placement is one of the more satisfying puzzly elements in a game I've seen in a long, long time, because there's so many different things you're trying to think of. You might get a new lesson that goes, oh, okay, now I'm going to want to try to do this. But then you still need to pay attention to those families. You get your points from a number of different ways, and we've had a lot of games where it's been pretty close, and our boats have looked completely different. It's very, very satisfying.
Yeah, I think you nailed it there. Most games that do the drafting really well, but they don't do the gameplay part of it well. This does both of them very, very well, and I think that's why I want the art to be so good for me, is because I want that whole trifecta to work. Those 2 parts together, though, have made me play this game. We haven't counted, but it has to be between 8 to 10 times between my wife and I. We've introduced it to friends, we've played it, and each time that I played this game, I just really, really enjoy it. Like, there's nothing about this game that says, oh, I don't want to play again. And that's because, as you mentioned, there's so much variability in the cards that you draft. You never know what other people are going to draft. One game you could have a lot of Oshaks. Next game you could see none for the entire game.
Yeah, because of the stack is so big.
Right. Some strategies you can go for a lot of baskets, so you're never having to pull those green cards. Sometimes you need those green cards. So it has huge variability, even from 2 players all the way to 4 players. Now, I don't have any experience as a solo player, but I would imagine if the game holds true for solo, this is a really, really strong game throughout.
You know, another interesting thing that would typically be a con for me, but I'm going to put it in the pro category because I just love the way it works here, are negative points at the end of the game.
Yeah.
A lot of those games where there's negative points and you're kind of digging yourself out from a hole, this has that, because you've got to fill all these rooms. And guaranteed, the first time you play this, I'll bet you almost anything, you're going to get some negative points, because covering all the rooms, and there's 7 rooms here, means you're covering your entire boat.
I've never had it happen yet.
I've seen people get maybe 2 tiles away from doing something like that. But if you don't, you're going to lose 5 points for sure. You might lose more depending on your tile placement. But I really like it here because the puzzle aspect of it. The game is built so much around this. In games like Feast for Odin, it bothered me. I love that game, but that aspect of it really bothered me. This one, you've got the rats that give you negative points, and then on top of that, you might have lesson cards that say, you know what? If you don't cover this particular room, you're going to get this many points. So you'll actually net out like maybe 5 to 10 points that way.
Yeah.
So you can be doing some things on your board where someone might look over and go, why, you're not covering your rats? And it's because they have a lesson card that gives them points for rats.
Yeah, the public lessons are interesting. I typically haven't found myself drafting those cards. In all the games I've played, it's almost always private lessons that people are drafting. The public lessons come into play when you start watching what other people do, and you really don't want to play them early game, because everyone's going to build their board to not get those negative points or to get the positive points from them. Where they really come into play is drafting those the 4th or the 5th round, where people look at their board and say, I can't score anything from that, but this guy's getting 10 points. So they're more weighted towards the end game than they are the beginning of the game.
I would 100% agree with that. The public lessons, in the first couple rounds, no one's going to be drafting that typically because, like Jeremy just said, those are going to be things that you want to hold on to, although you don't really want to hold on to them either because you're having to pay fish for them and then just sit on them for the game. So it depends on when they come, and that's just like all the rest of the cards. Like Jeremy said, sometimes there's Oshaks, sometimes there's certain lessons that come out that you used the last time. Sometimes you have to create a whole new strategy.
Yeah, so that is Isle of Cats. This is a big thumbs up for me. It's from City of Games. This is the basic version of the game that you see here. This is the Kickstarter version. We didn't show any of those components, but if you get into the game and you really like it, I would try to hunt down this if you didn't back it as a Kickstarter. If you have any questions about the game, make them in the comments below. Subscribe to us, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and everything else that we do, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Bye-bye.